A countryside of ancient landscapes, and for thousands of years, a countryside linked with mystery and intrigue. Tessa de D'Urberville spent her last night on a so-called slaughter stone. William Blake believed, according to his famous hymn, that Jerusalem was builded here. And every now and then, a new dawn brings something more than we have known. Life can hardly be described as dull in these parts of Wiltshire. In this heady atmosphere of pink wine, picnics and flickering candlelight, there's talk of strange happenings, of mystery circles that rise up from the earth as images never to be forgotten, and no one knows why. The centuries-old towns and villages have been filled with people from all over the world, curious of the unexplained. Drop into any of the lovely old pubs and they tell you when and where the latest mystery circle had appeared.
Some go along with it very well. Others don't.
David, you've been researching the circus for about 6 years now.
And for 13 years, that's how it was. Then, two friends stunned the world by claiming they were hoaxers and responsible for the circle phenomenon. In fact, according to Murdoch's British daily newspaper Today, these two practical jokers had conned the world. They and they alone had baffled the boffins and even the British royal family.
I'm Dave Chorley, this is Doug Barr, and we are the two people that created the crop circles in 1978 through to today.
The trouble is, we found no concrete evidence to support their claim.
What is it all coming to? What is it coming to? And you heard the guy there, you heard that guy there on camera say that these fellows claim to have started it in 1978.
Yeah, well,
the
I
next
shouldn't
question,
say, what-
I think it's Pat, I've got a camera rolling here,
yeah,
right? I've got
yeah,
a camera rolling,
yeah.
and the next question was, and he knew it was going to be, we have the evidence in Circular Evidence, the first book, of markings and photographic evidence of a phenomenon prior to that time.
Yeah.
Where were they?
You must have been very busy in some places.
We've averaged about 20 a year in Hampshire.
A little bit
and
more,
parts of
25,
Wiltshire.
25,
Yes.
about 25. Maximum any year, maximum 1 year was 32.
Absolutely, and I think the bills will then roll because they are already acknowledging, or at least they're claiming, to have constructed 200 formations. If they're only half right, then they've got a very large bill coming for damages.
Man-made theories have been drilled into people to such an extent that few appeared to question the hoax theory. In fact, we found ample arguments from the farmers themselves to the contrary.
Oh, they're not hoaxes.
How can you be so sure they're not hoaxes?
Too big, they're too perfect. For someone to go down there and do it in the dark, they wouldn't have a clue where they were going.
Would you have seen them?
Someone would, on that road. They'd have to have lights and someone would see them.
If they were out there hoaxing these elaborate ones that you've had on your property, would you catch them?
I'm pretty sure that somebody would see something. I mean, the hours of darkness are
are fairly few in the height of the summer, and to actually construct one of those circles well, I think would take some hours properly, and it would need to be aligned. I mean, we've had people who are architects and surveyors, people who know about constructing things in straight lines, and they say it's pretty hard to do it, especially on slopes and with the ground falling away in places. It's not the simplest thing in the world to do. I mean, people would like to rationalise it all and say it's all hoaxes because it's easier to say that and to dismiss the whole thing, but having been in the middle of it and having had a completely open mind about it.
How they created such huge formations without being seen is still a mystery.
Why have you kept it secret all this time?
Because it's been a great pleasure doing them. A very great pleasure. To be in the countryside, in England, in the summer, in the middle of a cornfield, you get great enjoyment out of it. And we were loath ever to get caught, but when it finished up, as it is now, at the moment, with government funds probably going to be asked for, and the hoo-ha and the multi-million-pound exercise that it's caused, we decided, on the moral side as well as anything else, it was time to call it a halt.
Harping on their one-upmanship, the newspaper Today set up a demonstration to show Doug and Dave's expertise to the world's press and TV.
See, different brightnesses of it.
You hit the road.
You'll go back just as we have.
But something went wrong.
Farmer's upset, we're going to pull out, we're causing too much trouble.
Oh dear, all right.
Right.
Cool, all that for nothing.
I
can't believe it.
Can I just talk to you? Just a quick word before you complete your depart. It's been a bit because this farmer's getting very irate, and my office has instructed me to go away, because we can't cause trouble.
Ask him if we can finish it off.
Well, let's get everybody out first.
Why did Graham Bruff, the Today reporter, pull them out before completing the circle?
A couple of words on the way out.
Not at the moment, I think we're a little bit up for...
Yes, it's just as you're walking, really. I mean, how does this circle compare?
No, I don't think so, really.
The incident was interesting, to say the least. Beyond that, there's also another mystery. The riddle of the copyright at the end of Graham Bruff's article. Copyright MBF Services. No one knew the company. We found no telephone listing. Graham Bruff said he wasn't sure. The truth is, British Companies House has confirmed in this search certificate that MBF Services do not, nor ever did, exist. Why this story was copyrighted by a non-existent company can only be guessed at.
If you've ever been in the circles over this last season, you would have been aware that there were a lot of people from all different countries. There've been a lot of Japanese over there, there've been a lot of Americans, Germans. There was a great interest in crop circles. And to go down to the West Country in the summer is like a circus down there, because there are people all over the place. And so in claiming that these things are hoaxes and spreading the word right throughout the world, then you get rid of a lot of people in one fell swoop. And so if there's any serious work going on with some particular government body or whatever, then they now have a free rein to get on with it. Not only do they have a free rein, but all the serious investigators have been made to look stupid. And this is one of the things that concerns me.
A military band heralds the morning ritual, the pageantry and excitement of the changing of the guard.
London's rituals never change. But for those mysteries about the West Country, Westminster had this to say.
The British government has conducted no research to explain the phenomenon of crop circles, nor to test the differing hypotheses. Furthermore, the government has no plans to initiate any research.
No official interest in the most evocative mystery of the decade. But look at the whole picture. Two friends said, after a pint or two in the pub, they crept into the fields at night, unseen for 13 years, and created the crop circles. A non-existent company copyrights their story. Reporter Graham Bruff offered no information on the company that put their copyright on his story. The Australian press suggests that Britain's Ministry of Defence may be involved. In fact, it may go further, to the top of the CIA and the French Secret Service. To be in the proximity of what is likely, true, or untrue, or even a conspiracy, is perplexing. The truth is, this is a story of extraordinary happenings. It's far from easy to get an accurate picture of how it all began. These stunningly precise shapes quite suddenly appeared across the landscapes of southern England, many over 140 meters long and some twice as large. The first formations were simple circles. As more circles appeared, they became more complex. Many were symbols of ancient civilizations, and it's these complex designs that lead people and the media to believe that the whole thing is a hoax. There's one man who can identify a circle that can't be explained. Part-time pilot Busty Taylor joined the Centre for Crop Circle Studies 6 years ago. He's usually the first into a new circle.
Well, in most cases, if it's a hoax, what will happen is the actual stems of the plant will be broken. As you can see here, it's been here a few days at the moment, not too long, but even though it's been here a long time...
How many days has this been here?
This has been here about 10 days, 10 to 12 days.
Okay.
And as you can see, the plants are not broken in any way. What's happened, they have actually bent over just above the ground. And as you can see here, that nothing is actually broken. That part there has a little bit where somebody's trodden on it. But in most cases, it's lead.
So none of them are broken at all, you can tell by that?
No, broken at all. Whereas if you try to push this over when it's in this type of condition, what it will do is it will just break, as you can see very easily. And here, every one...
But couldn't this just be flattened by some apparatus or something?
No, we've tried rollers. The French have tried rollers, and what they found, when it's green, that it would go down and immediately spring back upright again. We've tried pushing it down with rods, and that makes it sort of individual parts will be broken. The heads tend to, what you call, rest against the next crop, and they will bend over and you will pull them off.
I notice all the layers are pointing this way.
That's right.
Do you ever have occasions where they may interlay or something a bit more dramatic than this?
We have crop circles where we have contra-rotations in the same circle, just over the hill behind us here. We had one this year, which was at Beckhampton, and half the circle was clockwise, and the other half was anti-clockwise, and there was a join down the middle. And if you look at it from a photographic point of view, the centre part is laid down more than the outer part.
Any significance of this circle is so close to Silbury Hill, the largest man-made mound, I understand.
Yes, we've noticed this in the records with the corn circles, the fact that they seem to always locate themselves next to ancient things.
Silbury Hill is the largest man-made monument in Europe and unique among prehistoric monuments. To this day, no one has established why it was constructed. Under the earth cover is a pyramidal form similar to the pyramid of the pharaoh Djoser, who ruled Egypt during the 3rd dynasty. An extraordinary parallel. What energy or unknown force could be linked to a distant past? Had we reached the limits of logic? We met with a doctor of botany who'd studied the earth around the circles.
I think natural forces are working.
An intelligent force?
It seems to me that there's intelligence behind it. Now, whether it's a human intelligence or some other, I don't know.
Some find them frightening. Others find them fascinating.
I think it raises a lot of questions about what plants are and the nature of substance itself, actually. And there are forces working that we don't really understand at all well.
If all circles are hoaxes, you have to believe that a silent army of hoaxes are moving around the countryside under cover of darkness. And if they're not, who are? There was one scientist, Dr. Terence Meadham, who had reasons to believe he knew some of the answers.
But for the first 8 years that I was studying this subject, there were virtually no hoaxes at all. I looked at hundreds of circles in those days, and I was almost the only person doing so. I was then finding beautifully laid down circles which were very complex and far beyond the ability of any hoaxer.
And how do you feel they're formed?
They are formed naturally by a vortex in the air, which is brought into being by the arrival of a wind field, which butts against a hill, which is an obstacle in the wind flow. It throws out an eddy vortex downwind of that hill, and that is the origin of the circle, when it breaks downwards and screws itself into the ground.
And you've been studying them for how long?
I saw my first circles in 1980, and I've been looking at circles ever since.
And they seem to be getting more complicated. Is that the case in pattern or not?
They've been more complicated last year and this year, but that has also coincided with the tremendous rise in the amount of hoaxing going on. It's true that the total numbers have been going up in recent years as well. That is to say, until last year. The numbers this year are well down on last year. This is possibly because there is an electrical connection with sunspot activity, but that is only a secondary event in the thing that makes the circles.
To my mind, Dr. Meaden's theories are utter bullshit. There is no way that his theories of natural atmospheric vortices explain what is actually happening in the crop fields here in Wiltshire and Hampshire. These vastly complex geometric patterns like this are increasing and have been increasing for the last 3 or 4 years, and these could not be anything naturally formed. There is only one question.
There are strong criticisms of this theory, but even more sensational, Dr. Meaden is sure that spiraling winds were forming crop circles during the Neolithic civilization 5,000 years ago.
It seems that ancient man was finding crop circles, interpreting them as being a gift from the great goddess who they were worshipping, and they were constructing stone circles at that place in order to have a sacred area they could use for their own purposes. The thinking seems to have been related to the symbolism of the spiral.
We have the same symbols turning up in all those different countries with their ancient civilizations. The circles to me are also triggers for us to get in touch with some of our own feelings and our own thoughts. I do feel that we have a connection with the Earth, with the cosmos.
A spiral implies at once birth and growth, generation and life. And so, if a ring of stones was placed around the edge of a crop circle, then the thinking was that this is a sacred area useful for fertility rites. By contrast, if the idea was to bury somebody in such a place, then the corpse was folded up into the fetal position and buried at the center of the circle, which corresponds, in fact, because it's the center of a spiral, it corresponds to the vulva of the goddess, and so the dead person was being put back into the womb of the goddess for rebirth.
The corn dolly offers some support to his hypothesis. The spiral-shaped dolly was said to have been critical to the preparations for the harvest.
Now, it's no easy matter making an elliptical stone circle in a field. Even a farmer of today wouldn't find that an easy job. He'd probably have to go and ask a surveyor to come in and help him do it, and mathematics would have to be applied. And yet that was being done 5,000 years ago in the fields. Somehow, the farmers were laying out stone circles, and I say that the reason that they were doing that so easily is that they were putting the stone circles, in fact, around crop circles.
Experts may disagree. Everyone has heard of Avebury. 3 phases of stone circles were built over an area of 30 acres. The stones are surrounded by a massive bank and ditch. Archaeologists are still scratching their heads over why this massive monument was built. West Kennet Long Barrow, the biggest chamber tomb in England. Around it, the mysteries of Wiltshire rise from the earth as images that will never fade. Britain's prehistoric history has left its mark in every corner of Wiltshire, and almost every question asked about that history goes unanswered. The strong clustering around ancient monuments had teams of watchers out all night, but the circles seemed to confound all its investigators. This witness claimed he had seen a crop circle form.
Well, we were riding along the Ridgeway near Lavington there one evening, and we happened to be just sort of generally looking around. When I was looking out into the valley, it just like debris going around in a circle, same as you're getting a shopping mall, and it just left a circle in the ground, and that was really all I saw. It only lasted minutes, seconds, not even a minute. And that's really all there was.
There is only one question to ask. They're either man-made or they're not man-made. And if they're not man-made, we have to ask where they're coming from.
The Mail on Sunday had no doubts. On August the 25th, 1991, it headlined, "Witnesses unravel the riddle that baffled the world. In a rush of whirling air and a high-pitched whine, this couple discovered the secrets of the circles." The problem was, no one believed them. Was the answer in things supernatural? Isabel Kingston, well-known and respected medium, had been attracted to the area by the circles and the mysteries of its sacred sites.
I felt very much that I needed to come to this area about 6 years ago. That I felt that I'm very much into the archaeological sites, Avebury and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And I felt the energy was changing and I wanted to come here.
And you're a clairvoyant and a medium.
That's right.
What does that mean to you?
In other words, I have the ability to see the unseen and to link into energies that perhaps other people might not be able to do.
And how do you feel places like Silbury Hill and Avebury, etc.?
They're very much so. They're very powerful, mystical places that have been used for thousands of years by men for healing and for religious purposes. And the crop circles have actually manifested themselves around these special sites.
And is this do you think the crop circles are a new occurrence or something that's been around for quite a lot of time?
I feel they might have come about 3000 BC because a lot of the stone circles, the actual measurements, are exactly the same as some of the measurements of the circles.
So the circles at Stonehenge and Avebury were built because of crop circles originally?
I don't feel they were built because of them, but I certainly feel that at that time there was a raising of consciousness, that people were becoming more aware, more open, and it's now happening again.
They are an intelligence, and they are a non-human intelligence we're dealing with. It's something of a very weird nature.
The connection between crop circles and the UFO phenomenon is widely acknowledged by researchers. The evidence provided is certainly thought-provoking. Stephen Alexander and his wife recall the day when they went hunting for circles.
You know, it's like it was controlled, and it moved through the corn, and it's glinting and flashing, as I say. Then it stopped for about 3 minutes, and I stopped filming. Then the object actually took off again. It flew across the field, and near a tractor driver, over a tractor driver, and on and up into the distance. And we lost it over the actual hill, didn't we?
I saw it, didn't I? You lost it
You
on
could
camera.
actually see it,
Yeah,
but I
I
couldn't
saw
actually
it.
see it in the viewfinder.
I saw it like disappear out.
Yeah.
There's the thing. I lied.
1 year later, and in the same area, a German tourist recorded this. Rita Gould, a paranormal investigator, she too had an extraordinary experience.
And suddenly, around about 3 or 4 minutes to 3, all the dawn chorus and all the birds started up. And we thought this was really unusual, and they stopped instantly. And seconds after that, to the northeast, we saw descending, if I may describe, this huge column of white. It was a straight column that came down on the hill, and suddenly it shot out either side.
George Wingfield, with 6 others, were on a night watch inside a circle. Suddenly, they were overcome by a strange, shrilling noise.
All 6 of us were bowled over by this, and we thought that we were in the presence of some kind of living entity, and yet there was no material thing there. Surprisingly, we weren't frightened.
What sort of entity?
That I have no idea. This behaved like a living thing. It approached us. It moved about as if it was conscious of our presence. I went up to the edge of the crop circle, and I said out loud, just out loud like that, to an empty crop field, if you like, where this intense noise was coming from a point very close to me. I said, please, will you make us a circle? When it got light, there was a new circle about 500 yards away, a circle with a ring round it, just in the direction in which the trilling noise had vanished away across the fields.
There are many who are conscious of military surveillance. While filming the circle, we too appeared to come under surveillance from a helicopter, and still photographers working from an unmarked van amongst the trees.
Netherhaven Army Air Base. I can assure you there's been plenty of allegations that the Army has hoaxed circles and been involved in some kind of cover-up.
Well, I know that's not the case. It's not worth our while. We're very concerned with public relations, and that sort of thing will be frowned upon. Even if an individual decided to do it, the Army would not cover it up. They would announce the fact that an individual had done it, rather than risk the Army's reputation be tainted by an individual's actions.
So what is the Army's attitude towards crop circles?
Well, much the same as everyone else.
Obviously know they exist.
Yes, we see them all the time. As you know, this area is predominantly where they occur, and we see them almost daily as we fly around here. I think we're as confused as anybody. The fact that a certain amount are hoaxes, and that's proven, further confuses the issue and perhaps clouds people's judgment. I don't believe all of them are man-made, but I'm certainly not a scientist. I'm not prepared to say. But I can categorically say they're not formed by aircraft, helicopters or otherwise. I've not personally seen somebody making one. I've heard of them being man-made, and I know of certain farmers' groups who did it to test the so-called experts, and the experts were able to detect very quickly that they were man-made, and others nobody can explain away. So I believe that it is an unexplained phenomenon, but I must reiterate that it cannot be done by a helicopter.
Do you think there could be some danger to the nation's security?
I don't think so.
But shouldn't the Army be looking into it because of the fact that we can't think why they're there, we don't know who's doing them, and we're so close to so many bases?
Well, I believe that's a coincidence. They are found all over the south of England. Winchester there's some hills at Winchester which are very well known for their corn circles, and that's nowhere near a military establishment. And they're not actually on our doorstep. They appear in random locations, and I think it's a little far-fetched to suggest that it's likely to affect security. And indeed, those people who feel that they are supernatural or whatever, or at least unexplained, seem to suggest that the people, whatever's producing them, is not in any way violent. All the corn circles seem to be of a sort of platonic nature. They're not suggesting anything other than artistic or whatever, as in the old cave drawings, perhaps.
So the Army's never looked into it? They've never used helicopters to photograph circles? Or
only in assisting those civilian scientists who are doing studies of it. You'll see photographs in all the various publications, some of which have been produced from Army helicopters.
Ted Krasani, PR officer at the Lyneham Air Base, came up with almost the same answer.
We've got 3,500 people here, and any group of 3,500 people, you're going to get every opinion ranging from what Dr. Meaden says through people saying it's a huge hoax.
And your feeling?
I've got open mind. You know, if they're a hoax, I'd like to know how they get them so geometrically perfect. So I think they probably are formed with some force that maybe, certainly I don't understand, but maybe something that's a little bit of a mystery to us.
Beautiful, staggering symmetry. Surely impossible from the hands of mere humans. Inside a circle, there's a sense of wonder. The sheer perfection in the way the stalks are laid flat and the way they're left standing at the cut-off point. Many sit for long periods inside the circle, aware of energy rippling through their bodies. Strange humming noises. People deeply affected by what they see. Who then stands to gain or lose? Books have been written and sold in many languages, along with the usual tourist trappings, found on sites where farmers have tried to regain some of their losses from trampled crops. The world has an insatiable appetite for what's going on in Wiltshire. Many are archetypal images of ancient religious symbols. Some are Christian in the form of long crosses. And similar circles are seen throughout the world. The strange story of Wiltshire is that the circle images remain long after the harvest. The Japanese were so intrigued that a TV crew spent 2 weeks perched on top of a hill with a mass of sensitive equipment. But the phenomenon has confounded all its investigators. Right at the bottom of the list, gain or lose, is the farmer, who, and rightly so, could shut the gates to visitors trampling all over his crops and forget that crop circles ever existed. Curiously, they seem to be the least concerned.
Mist came down 1 o'clock in the morning. When it rose up in the morning about 6, 7 o'clock, it was there.
And how many have you had on the property over the last 7, 8 years?
Well, we've had 7 on here this year, and
how many this year?
7.
7.
And we've had 5 the year before, and the year before that we had 6 rings in a sort of blob, blob, blob.
And you seen anything yourself at all?
Nothing.
Lights, nothing at all?
Nothing at all.
Just you wake up in the morning and you just out to find some circles?
Well, I'm a shepherd as well as a farmer, and when sleep comes, you tend to go to sleep and you don't piss around doing anything else.
The village of Alton Barnes had the most spectacular circles. And for farmer David Carson, it meant hordes of visitors.
It wasn't there the night before, and it was there that morning, and we were completely amazed when we walked into it to see how complex it was and how incredibly beautiful it was, really. And that began to make us think a bit harder about it.
Do you think it could have been hoaxed?
No, I really don't. I think it would have taken a team of 10 or 20 people with sighting gear and theodolites and things a long, long time to make it as perfect as that.
Many farmers, including yourselves, are charging a small admission to get on to and to have a look at some of these. Do you think the farmers are hoaxing themselves?
I don't think so. I mean, it does take an awful lot of time to man these circles. I mean, we have to man them from 9 in the morning till 10 at night until dusk falls, basically. And it requires an awful lot of labour to be brought in, people to volunteer to do the job. We have to pay them. A lot of farmers tried, like we did last year, to charge this year and gave up because it took so much time and effort. And at the end of the day, we're in the business of farming rather than running a tourist industry.
You recall the night when that one appeared, that very next day, how many circles had appeared all over?
I believe that we had one very large one on the next door farm, and we were told that over 100 circles had appeared in Wiltshire and Hampshire that night.
The white horses of Wiltshire dominate the broad vistas of open lands. A patchwork of farmlands and villages that stretch for miles in endless harmony. Man had lived here since before the pyramids were built. Had the circles phenomenon crept up on an unsuspecting land little prepared for such events?
So you think they're all hoaxed?
I don't think at all, but they may be. And I must say, the most obvious explanation is likely to be the true. If mail comes through my letterbox, I don't think the fairies have bought it. I tend to think the postman did.
You've had some incredibly complicated ones appear here in the last year or so.
Yes, yes.
Do you remember seeing them in the morning? And
yes, I went up the day after that they appeared, and I don't know, I went in the field, and when I stood in the actual circle, I felt a sort of tingling sensation.
What do you think the crop circles?
They're definitely an intelligence. What could be under the ground, or aliens, whether it's people. Could be the army.
Somebody said it was all UFOs landing on the ground.
I wouldn't be surprised, but knowing some people as I do, I wouldn't. Well, they probably see UFOs every night and always did.
I'd like to think that it's from somebody up there doing it.
Some kind of force beaming down, and somewhere sitting on the ground.
Many scientists believe that the universe is but one huge, powerful computer with a conscience. Scientists believe that such a computer might well generate a whole society of conscious beings, beings that could think, live and die in a simulated world. When the Mandelbrot appeared, many saw the computer symbol of chaos as a way of interpreting that the Earth and its occupants were in chaos. Is this the intelligent force others speak of? These dazzling fractal computer images could not have been dreamed into existence by any act of human imagination. It was there before Mandelbrot discovered it. Over the past few years, there's been a great increase of energy entering the Earth's atmosphere.
The lights that people have seen up in the sky tend to be beams of light that are coming down towards the ground, and whether it's coincidence I don't know, but following one of these light shows that are seen in the night sky, there always seems to be a formation the following morning fairly near to where these lights have been seen to be coming down onto the ground.
Does it seem like some sort of man-made plane or whatever that's...
I do know that the people who are watching these light shows have managed to get access to all the flying centres, and we've managed to eliminate that anything was flying at that time.
Sacred sites are known energy nodes, or centres of energy, situated at the junctions or crossover points on the electromagnetic matrix. Influenced by celestial activity, energy enters the Earth's electromagnetic matrix. From these points, energy flows out along ley, or energy lines, and into crop circles. Once again, there's this strong feeling of interplay between the sacred sites and the crop circles. The land is vibrant with invisible energies, said Richard Andrews. The energies associated with ancient monuments have been used for healing and fertility rituals since time immemorial. For Richard and Leonie, it's a combined effort to search for the significance of the phenomenon and much less the mechanics of its creation.
We want to do it.
Yeah, well, it certainly feels good this evening, I must say.
Yeah. The thing about this one is that we've got it fairly clean here, and there's nobody about, which is the main thing. It means that we can go straight into what we're doing without any worry about it.
Indeed. Very dry now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think now that the dew's not on it, you can really begin to see how ripe this is.
Yeah.
I think this is ideal, Jane.
Yeah.
Only because it gives a nice area to start. I think we'll just see what that energy is like.
Okay.
Because that's quite important at this stage.
Yeah.
I'll just check the edge first and see what's happening there. Yes, there's the edge, you see.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. We should... Yes, we've got it on the edge of this, so that eye will be a nice separate piece.
Right. Good.
I think we're going to get any energy. It's going to be more in the centre.
Which direction was this one?
This one is about northeast, northwest rather,
northwest?
in that direction. That's northwest there. But this is the area where the centre is, which is where we get the most of the energy. So we're looking from that point of view, so you get the crossing in the centre. And then there it is there. And I like to find that so that we can use our tubes then, probably to see if that's maybe a main area with the centre of vortex.
Are there any other ones?
Yes, well, we're normally looking, of course, underneath here. This is what we look for. Yes, there is. Look, you see under there. Look at that. You see that whole lot, that line going in that direction, straight to the centre. And that goes, as a rule, on this sort of thing, right the way down through the centre, which is very, very interesting, really. So this helps to show that it isn't a hoaxed one.
It isn't a hoax?
No. It is definitely not a hoax.
Which ancient site it may link up with?
Well, that
As if
is
there's a
not
line
absolutely
going...
evident here, but it could be in either direction, of course. And that sometimes we work out from the map, you know, but it's a matter of, there's nothing that we can see. Silbury Hill is just over the back.
That's right, Avery's just over there as well.
That's right.
Okay.
So here we are with the patterns being right. And of course, the interesting thing is here, if we try this, you see we've got that as a line.
Yeah.
And you'll get that even with your eyes closed, but if I have my eyes closed when I get to it, you see, it'll go off and completely...
Now, where is the crossing point?
Crossing point, well, we'll just check it. We've got that line going through the centre there. And then we get, here it is, here.
Right.
Now that will go through the actual centre part of the...
So that could link up with Avery. I mean, I don't know whether it's on it, but it's
Few come to realise the richness of events that have taken place and the astonishing age of everything. The strong clustering around ancient monuments had teams of watchers out all night, but the circles seemed to confound all its investigators. What energy or unknown force could be linked to a distant past? If this was some arty game being played by a couple of jokers, then some very professional people would end up with egg on their face. Strange humming noises at night. Dogs barking continuously. Cars that won't start.
I'm Jane Rickards. I'm a sculptor. I grew up amongst the ancient sites of Wiltshire where my father's family farmed nearby, and I feel a part of that land. It is no surprise to me now that these sites are being regenerated, as are the ley lines which connect them. This activity is part of an overall growth of consciousness of our planet and is being visualized in stunningly beautiful graphic form by the crop circle phenomenon. Centered around southern Britain, the eye of the world, They represent, through a symbology which registers at the very root of our existence, the creative force of life and love. I feel my work as an artist now is to link, through image making, faith in the good spirit of the world with our quest to be part of it. I work to commission for the Church with satisfaction, as I believe the life and teachings of the Christ were an evolutionary leap forward for mankind. My work is to recreate those familiar depictions in the light of our again changing consciousness, therefore to re-see and perhaps even comprehend this time. We are being given the means to evolve in harmony with the earth and each other. Let us recognize this and allow ourselves to be changed.
It's not surprising that many see the patterns in the field as a meaning, and people are affected by them. Are the circles warning signs against aggression and the growing ecological crisis? We can choose to let our minds explore these possibilities or remain tied to objective reason. Maybe the meaning of crop circles will escape us forever. Perhaps they mean nothing. Perhaps they mean far more than we can hope to understand.